Sorry, can I just ask, are we going to have access to the slides later on, or any content?
I don't share my slides.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't share my slides. If you would like to have the slides, let's talk afterwards.
Oh, okay, all right, okay. Just wanted to know. So,
All right.
okay. Yeah.
All right, so let's try that again and see if it works. All right. All right, do you all see my slides, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. So we're doing community trauma care workshop today. It's a free workshop. It is not the course. We actually have the course coming up in September. This is just the free workshop to just introduce you to what we're doing. Why does mental health matter? Mental health is a state of well-being in which the individual realizes his or her own abilities, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to contribute to his or her community. This is the way I love to describe it. Mental health is that you're emotionally sound, psychologically well, socially connected and relevant, spiritually connected, financially doing well. It is entire components of our lives. So when people hear about mental health, they usually think about mental illness, but mental health is your state of wellness. So another word that is a synonym is wellness. It's mental wellness. How well are you? How well are you doing emotionally, psychologically, socially, spiritually, in all areas of your life? Mental health is community health. Mental health is community health. We need to understand that a community that is dysfunctional will create individuals who are dysfunctional. And individuals who are dysfunctional will create communities that are dysfunctional. It is a dance that we do creating dysfunction, and dysfunction keeping and maintaining our dysfunction. The same thing the other way around. Healthy, emotionally well individual create communities that are healthy. And communities that are healthy will produce individuals who are healthy. The same thing with families. Whenever I say the word communities, you can literally transfer it to any system, a family system, organizational systems, a church system, any system that actually has their own culture can be a synonym for what I've just said. Why trauma care matters? Trauma care is a type of mental health care. Not everyone focuses on trauma care. You can go to a therapist or a counselor, and they can do all kinds. They can treat you with different types of modality. You can have cognitive behavioral care. You can have behavioral therapy. You can have psychodynamic family systems. You can have all kinds of modality, and that therapist or that counselor might not focus on trauma care. But what we found in this age and in this time, especially that we live in, that trauma happens. And sometimes when we're treating the symptoms of trauma, which looks like other stuff, somebody who's been traumatized could be defiant. Somebody who is traumatized could be depressed. Somebody who is traumatized can be anxious. Somebody who is traumatized can begin to exhibit all kinds of psychological ailments. And we can start treating the ailment, but if we don't focus on the original trauma and heal that, then that will keep the cycle of illness the cycle of dysfunction continuous. So psychological trauma is damage to the mind that occurs as a result of extremely distressing events. Trauma is pervasive. Trauma, you're unprepared for it. Trauma means that it's come to overwhelm your ability to function. And in this age that we're in right now, where we're undergoing a global pandemic, a global recession, in addition to the other things, communities are impacted. I'm currently in Lagos, Nigeria, where people experience, all kinds of community issues, negative affects. For example, we just had students who were kidnapped. I shared this on my social media, and they just returned some of them to the communities. And you should have seen the students. This young, some of them were 10, 11, 12-year-olds. You should have seen the way they had to carry them into the community. They have been impacted. They've been traumatized. And those particular children, not only have they been traumatized individually, the families have been traumatized and the community has been traumatized. So we cannot look at trauma alone from an individual point of view. We have to look at trauma from a communal point of view. So when we're talking about mental health systems, in most society, we have mental health systems, we have mental health agencies, we have, especially in developed countries, we have mental health agencies, we have places that you can go to that actually focuses solely on mental care. Where I am right now, there's a weakness in that. We don't have those structures in place. In particular areas of the world, there is just not enough psychologists and psychiatrists to take care of everyone. And so we do have people that have private practices who are doing the best they can. We have religious organizations who try to do the best they can. I always submit to all churches and mosques and every religious organizations there. Do not try to triage trauma alone or mental health alone. Get the training, get trained so that we're not saying you shouldn't use your Christian counseling. We're not saying that you shouldn't use scriptures, but we're saying that there are keys that you need in order to effectively help those who have been traumatized and wounded in any way. And so when you go through trainings, go through the trainings, get certified, get the knowledge so that you in your ministries are able to effectively help those who need help. I have pastors who refer people to us all the time. They're like, okay, we have this person, what can you help them? And I have special trauma specialists who can help. And so religious organizations, you're doing well, you're doing great, but please add training to it. And if you're anyone who is helping people facing nurses, your people facing doctors, your people facing anyone, even psychologists who have not really had trauma or community health training, you need to be a part of it. It is a good idea for you to be helping women or to be helping men or to be helping children in social systems, but get this training so that you can be effective and not re-traumatize people unknowingly. So there's no coordinating body to oversee public education and awareness campaigns on mental health and mental disorder. So we as communities have to take, action and decide we're going to do this. We're going to help ourselves. This is one of the reasons that why I'm particularly focused on community mental health, especially in developing countries, where right now I'm in Nigeria, Africa. And so that is also a place that we're asking them people to start focusing on community mental health. If you are in, it says participants can now see my screen. Couldn't you see it before? Okay. Zoom is doing its own thing today. What can I tell you? Why community mental health? Why community mental health? I want to take some time to read this because it's from WHO and I want us to understand it. When we say communities, we're talking about systems, we're talking about wherever you belong. So communities are systems. So your church community, your home community, your professional communities, these are all communities that we're referring to today. So the availability and integration of mental health systems or services into communities can promote accessibility, acceptability, affordability, and scalability of services, as well as promote adherence to treatment and increase the likelihood of positive clinical outcomes. What are we saying here? WHO is saying if we bring mental health into communities, then people can be, then it becomes accessible. We cannot reach everybody, but you within your community, if you bring it to your church, if you bring it to your women, if you bring it to the men in your groups, if you bring it to your own different professional platforms, if you bring it anywhere that is a community, a gathering of people, then it becomes accessible. Those people will be able to access,
You're just seeking for approval for
be able to access community mental health, they're able to access care. Then acceptability, because because it's part of the system of that particular community, then it's acceptable. Because first of all, we know that there's something called groupthink. There's groupthink. And peer pressure works when they see somebody, when they see that their friends, their leaders are on this, then they begin to accept it. And then it's affordable. When more people listen to something, when you bring the care to a group, it's more affordable, whatever it is. A discount is usually given to more people who want to take a training. Also, it's scalable, the scalability of services, which means that the more communities we bring it to, the more scalable it becomes, and we begin to promote mental health care within communities. Number two, community service can play a crucial role in promoting mental health awareness, reducing stigma, discrimination, supporting recovery and social inclusion, and preventing mental health disorders. Look, I just believe that this is where the gathering of minds are in this era. Mental health is it. I mean, we just saw some Biles, Simone Biles, who just left the Olympics because of mental health issues. This thing is real, and people are talking about it. And so when we bring it to communities, we need to begin to understand that it's going to reduce stigma, because now, everybody's talking about what's happened to them. When we had we had an event in Ikeja here a couple of weeks ago, bringing all stakeholders together. And the lady shared a very powerful testimony of how she was raped when she was young by her own brother, by her half brother, where she was raped multiple times and she ended up being pregnant. And she lost a sense of self, dissociation from her body. She was a walking corpse. But she was saved by getting help, getting mental help. She was admitted. People were able to actually help her, and today she's doing very well. She's sharing her stories all over the place, and there were people at that community initiative that we hosted who were hearing those kind of stories for the first time, and it was an epiphany for a lot of people that it's not just when you pray and fast that people are healed, but there are keys to this kingdom. There is ways in which you can administer healing to somebody that is not necessarily the traditional spiritual culture where we find ourselves in especially in Africa and as Black people. So we need to have our minds open, begin to reduce stigma, because that woman sharing her story also will give other people, you know, a reason to share their story. Winnie is on this workshop today. She introduced herself. She told us that she is a domestic violence survivor, but she's doing great things now. She shares her story, and when she shares her story, she gives people the right, you know, to share theirs, a platform to share theirs, and also to get healed. So this is one of the ways we do that. All right. So WHO calls for the provision of comprehensive, integrated mental and social care, including promotion and prevention programs in communities, integrating the perspective and engagement of social service users and families. Right. WPA, also World Psychiatric Association, says a few things. This is the guidance of community mental health care. It says, it should have a population and public health focus, which is what we're doing, community-based finding, which is what we're trying to do, services available within a day's travel, participatory decision-making, self-help and peer support for service users. We have a consortium right now that talks about trauma awareness. And we've brought together stakeholders, including nurses, doctors, students, psychologists, educators. We bring them together so we can actually make the decision. What are some of the traumas we find within communities? Any communities that you belong to? You can in your chat box type in some of the traumas experienced within your communities, the communities that you belong to. So any types of communities, like I've said. So here I've listed illnesses, accidents, death, rape, abuse, verbal abuse, assault, systemic greed and corruption, traffic-induced trauma. What else would you find in communities that you belong to? So take a minute and type that in the chat box so we can add to the body of knowledge. I'll give you a minute, a few seconds to do that. I don't see anything you guys typing. What are some of the traumas you can find within your own communities? So we said kidnappings. Thank you for that. Who else? Divorce, mistreatment, emotional traumas, police brutality, depression as a result of financial loss. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, absolutely. Robbery, depression. Excellent. Excellent. Keep those coming because we need to know what's going on within communities so that we also can address them. If you don't know those things are there, and we might overlook them. And our job is to unveil these traumas, to make sure that that we see them so that we can address them. Poverty, limited beliefs, low self-esteem, excellent. Addiction, separations, lack of voice, very good, very good. Multiple death in the community system, example, a church, excellent. Yes, very good. So these are some of the things that we grapple with and wrestle with within our communities. And then we all want to just smile and act as if everything is okay. Well, things are not okay. So I had a client the other day who was saying that she was suffering, and this particular person had been abused and raped, and all kinds of things that happened. And people would see her smiling, or people would see her and they would just say, it is well, it is well, it is well. Even when she shares a story, they will say, it is well, you're going to be okay, but it wasn't well, she wasn't okay. So these are some of the code words that we use. And there was a pastor, a first lady, so she's pastor's wife, who said she lost so much weight. She had lost so much weight at the church, and everybody would come to her and say, oh, you look so good, you look nice, oh, wow, you've lost so much weight. But nobody asked her why she lost weight so drastically. She was in the throes of depression. She could barely walk out of bed. She came to church, and when they saw her, everybody congratulated her for losing weight. She was almost dead, and nobody even, asked her what was going on. And even this young lady who also about losing weight. She's a young lady. So all of you with young children who, if they've lost or gained weight drastically, it's time to really talk to them because something is going on. This young lady has an eating disorder. She's had it for years, and nobody knows. Nobody knows. It just, everybody say, oh, wow, you look so cute. Oh, wow, you look so, and she's suffering. So we have to pay attention to these things. That's why I'm asking you to type it, put in the chat box so that we can name them. We can name them so that we can address them. All right. What some of the benefits of building communities: increasing team interaction, building protective and energized culture, productive and energized culture, breaking down barriers, improving team performances, building camaraderie, respecting and understanding ethical values and ethical values, giving back, and the emotional connection as a reward. These are some of the things that we benefit by building communities. And of course, one of the reasons why we have this course that we're offering later on in September is because of all these things here. We need trained workers. We don't want you to be in the community and just trying to wing it. No, the time for winging mental health treatment is over. Bring in expertise. Make sure that people are efficient. Make sure that they're competent. Make sure there's collaboration between all of us, and that we are able to have enough people who are willing to help. There are people dying emotionally. And look, did you know that people who are traumatized actually, and even mental health, there's mental health illnesses or mental health disorders, have a lifespan that is 12 years less than other people. So that means they die 12 years younger than other people, mental illness and trauma and traumatized people. That is something that should wake us up, that we can no longer sweep this thing under the rug, and that we have to become intentional about what we're doing and how we are helping people. All right. All right, before I do this, I want to, okay, what are some of the things that I want to address? How to utilize social cultural processes that concentrate trauma within communities and for us to take action for change. Also, the one you want to learn how to help your clients and community members heal and thrive within broken systems, because we have a lot of broken systems. An economic environment, the stresses of living with inadequate access to economic and educational opportunities, or inequitable. Some of us might be in developed countries, but the inequity of opportunities can cause historical trauma, racial trauma, community traumas that must also be examined so that people can also be empowered to be able to do what they need to do for their lives to thrive. There's a scripture that says that I wish above all things that you may prosper, even as your soul prospers. So we want to make sure that our soul prospers. We want to make sure that we live in the overflow of life. Adverse childhood adversity, adverse childhood experiences, adult childhood experiences happens, and we need to start talking about it. Once you take the course, you will be able to identify adverse experiences that can impact on children's development. Do you know that I personally believe, and I tell my students this, that adverse childhood experiences is from the pit of hell, because it is the worst trauma that can happen. because it is the trauma that is developmental. So that means once you experience an adverse childhood experience, you are then prone to experience other complex trauma, complicated traumas in your development. And adverse childhood experiences have been tied to maladaptive adulthood. So it has been tied to negative medical outcomes. It's been tied to negative employment outcomes. It's been tied to early death. It's been tied to mental health issues. It's been tied to rape. It's been tied to so many other things. And so this is something that is preventable. But if people know about it, they can prevent it. Does that make sense? So you're also going to learn grounding techniques, advocacy, and can you guys see me? You can see me. Am I good?
Yes, you are.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, because you look, I have to check the network here. Sometimes I'm talking and there's nothing. So if you can't hear me or anything, just raise your hand and let me know. What are some of this? I want to share 3 things with you today. Not in detail, but at least you would know what we want to focus on. Psychological first aid, we want to focus on that. Community trauma care, we're focusing on that, and testimonial first aid. All right, or what we call testimonial therapy. What is psychological first aid? Psychological first aid is the initial disaster response intervention with the goal to promote safety, stabilize survivors of this disaster, and connect individuals to help and resources. Somebody will say something like, well, I'm not like a community social work person. Why would I need to know this? If you are in any community whatsoever, you need to know how to respond to disaster. And I'm not just talking about natural disasters. I'm not just talking about, it's when somebody, anytime anyone within a community is injured, the entire system is injured. Period. People will think about it. They would have vicarious trauma. People will begin to understand that there's somebody missing. There's either a death or an illness or some kind of loss in that particular community. How do you deal with that? How do we stabilize the survivors? How do we stabilize people who are left behind? How do we connect individuals to help and resources? Each community should take psychological first aid. What we're going to teach that in the course that we're going to offer. So psychological first aid is delivered to affected individuals by mental health professionals and other first responders. The purpose of psychological first aid is to, first of all, you're going to assess the immediate concerns and needs of that individual, of the individuals in the aftermath of that disaster. Okay, so you will first of all have an assessment. We first of all have a screening. Okay, who has been impacted? Who needs help? One thing I'm going to have all of you do, and this one thing I will share with you, so you can take away. This is called the ACE screening. Okay, and so this ACE screening, everybody should take it. Everybody should take it. Screen yourself to know that if you've been traumatized when you were a child, screen it. Okay, there are other screenings that you can take. That is a trauma screening, so that people know if they've been traumatized. I'm trying my best. I'll try to get through all this. And
the number of the what's it called? The letter header. That's what you sent to me.
Yes.
Please unmute yourself.
Why did you not change the number?
please mute yourself? Thank you.
Oh, I don't think.
Oh, I made you host. Give me back the host, right? Are you all still with me?
Yes.
Are you all with
Yes,
me?
we are. Yes.
Yeah, we are here. We are here.
Okay, good.
Yes.
I needed to stop because somebody was talking and I couldn't get them. And I cannot talk above your voices. So there we go. Here we go. Let's go back to where we were. All right. So when we're talking about trauma, community trauma care, I want to read this out to you. It involves the provision of appropriate care within the community to victims of emotional, physical, social, and psychological trauma. Trauma care addresses the need for commonly agreed standards of evidence-based and complementary or alternative medicines practiced in the management of trauma. So basically what we're saying is when we're talking about community trauma care, we're looking at all of those areas: emotional, physical, social, psychological. But the way we address this is by it's through evidence-based practices. These are practices that have been standardized within the field. But also we are also looking at what we call CAM, complementary and alternative medicines. Because I will tell you an example of that. An example of complementary and alternative medicine is mindfulness. And an example of that is meditation. An example of that would be anything within your community that works. Anything within your community that works. It might not be evidence-based, but it works within your community. There, a place in Africa where one of the complementary and alternative medicines that was used was just hugging people, where grandmothers were giving hugs they set their camps up in parks around, and they were giving out hugs to people. This was way before COVID, by the way, and also we have. So anything in JARS Therapeutics, we're constantly looking at complementary and alternative medicines, which could be technological alternative medicines, where right now there are instruments to help reduce depression. Those are some of the things that we look at. And then the aim is to provide to improve the outcome of trauma victims by establishing best practices. And we do this through education, research, and publishing. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. So the last one is testimonial therapy. And I think I'm going to camp here for a minute, because this is just completely one of my favorite things to teach communities. Testimonial therapy. From the word itself, it's the word testimony, right? And testimonial therapy is one of the ways to reduce stigma within communities. It is one of the ways to reduce stigma within communities. And what testimonial therapy is inviting people to tell their stories, including their traumatizing experiences within the community that they inhabit. And with the help of a mental health or trauma specialist who has been trained in doing this. And what they do is, it is about justice and healing. It's about justice and healing. We would record it says tape record, nobody tapes record anymore. We're going to record the testimony. And what we do with the testimonial is, once it's been put together, You're going to sit down with a trauma specialist or somebody who is a mental health advocate, and they will take your story. It's usually stories. It could be political stories of oppression. It could be stories of these people who have been kidnapped. It could be stories of rape. It could be stories of any kind of abuse. It could be stories of inequity within the communities. We would document the stories. All right. The first thing that does is it gives you the voice. You can voice this. You put it down, and it's written down. And then during the ceremony, there's actually a ceremony that is done with these victims. We would invite the community. So if you're a church, for example, we would invite the pastor, the leaders. If you are a women's group or a men's group, you invite the leaders into it. And what we do is we accept the story. We believe the story that you're saying, and we want to provide healing to you during this time. We believe you. You're not lying, and we are going to do everything we can to fix this injustice. Testimonial therapy is being used across developing countries to adjudicate and also to implement justice for people, to give justice to people that who have been marginalized in any way, in any shape or fashion. So it's about justice and healing. It's and even if you can't do the entire thing, try to just do a little bit of it, writing, documenting the story of injustice, and taking the shame out of it and saying, look, this is our daughter, this is our son, this is what happened to them. And people gather around these victims and they begin to work together to alleviate the issue or the injustice that happened to them. Sometimes is through equity. Sometimes it's through putting who did it through the justice system so they can get their own. You know, we have a community of secrecy, especially within Black communities, where nobody wants to say anything because nobody wants to, like the girl who talked to us before, that she was raped by a half brother. It was a secret in that family. Nobody wants to talk about it. And this girl had to endure such shame, such injustice for so long. With testimonial therapy, what it is it's no longer hidden. We're going to talk about it so that the perpetrator is the one who is shamed and not the one who was victimized. And both of them can get help. You can send the other one for justice has to happen and help. You can get your consequences and also get treated. Okay. And so this is also about the reduction of stigma that's associated with psychological and emotional wounding. We need to start talking about these things. We must start talking about it in order to help ourselves. So I was talking about justice. Justice is something worth achieving, and injustice something that should be avoided. Anytime a community experiences some kind of wounding and injustice, and we don't talk about it, we are perpetrating injustice. A church should not cover up rape. A mosque should not cover up rape. A family should not cover up rape. A system should not cover up injustice. If a particular group are being promoted and this other group are not being promoted, that's injustice, inequity. It should not be hidden. We should talk about it. Domestic violence should not be hidden. We need to talk about this thing. Can you understand this? When somebody has cancer or somebody has some kind of medical ailments, We don't hide it. We talk about it. Well, you should. You get the help that you can. But when somebody is wounded emotionally or psychologically, they talk about it, people start looking at them in some kind of way. No more. All of us on this this free workshop today should say no more, no more, no more, no more. So I want you to type in your chat boxes, no more. Just type in no more, no more, no more, no more. Everybody should type that in, no more. No more. Yes? No more. No more. Excellent. Some people even have it in caps. I like it. No more. No more. We're not hiding anymore. We're exposing this thing. You know, growing up, we always had people that came from, who knows where they would just come from. They will stay at our home. Somebody, my dad is helping, or somebody who is coming from the village to Lagos. I had this uncle who tried to rape me. But it couldn't, because my mother called me, but it was still a sexual assault because I was all of 6, 7. I can't remember what age I was. I was very young, you know, and I didn't talk about it to anybody because I was so scared to even say anything. But if I knew, I don't know that uncle anymore. I don't even know if he's alive or dead, but if I could ever remember him, you know, you best know that I'm going to say something to him. But we don't talk. We don't allow our children to talk about it. No more, no more, no more, no more. Because what happens, it begins to impact your sense of self. It begins to impact your sense of trust. It begins to impact so many things. A lot of women today who struggle with sex, with their husband says, so they don't want to have sex, they don't want to do this. If you go check their lives, they've had some sexual assault. They've had a rape in their childhood somehow. Because these things are never addressed, it goes into the choice of the husband or the wife that you marry. It goes into the relationships that you're going to build. So we just need to say no more. No more, no more, no more. So we need to understand that we also become advocates for this. We need to become advocates for justice. And then we have Ashoke centers all over. We're trying to build them all over Africa, but we're starting with Nigeria at this point in order to do our community, this community trauma care awareness. We're serious about it. Thank you for taking this free workshop. Who should take the course? There is a course coming up in September. All of these people listed: communities workers, business executives, life coaches, veterans, active office of duty officers, police, the military, victims of violence, including sexual, emotional, physical, bullying, accidents, trafficking, homelessness, incarceration, natural disasters, medical and mental health professionals, NGOs, religious leaders, advocates, parents. Anyone interested in this should participate in the course. And so that is it for me. Let's talk about questions and answers. Questions and answer time. I'm glad I was able to finish it at 1 o'clock.
Wow. All the time you stay us up. I'm dancing in my office. That's the voice of my mentor. This is so sweet in my ears. Like people would say, when are we going to be talking like this? My God. This is awesome. Wow, this is Nkechi anyway.
Right?
Yes, this is beautiful. I can't wait, honestly. For me, I think the first thing we are going to do is to begin to even put our communities together and begin to sing this music into their ears, especially the music of no more secrecy. Because that's where the problem lies. Like during the time of HIV, people die because of lack of information. You think when you are being raped, you don't say about it. It cannot remove the trauma from you. When you are being battered emotionally, financially by your husband, and you keep quiet, you are just, like you will say, you make it a family tradition and it goes round and round and nobody removes it. So if you are saying no more, in schools we are going to tell the children how to say no more to trauma. In churches, we're going to tell everybody liberty is here, freedom is here, healing is here. So it's a music we are all going to be singing in our community, depending on when the real center will reach us. I'm just encouraging everybody as we are taking it, like you said, we are all going to take we are all going to check the forms to find out our own positions. It's a good thing, but I want everybody to feel, maybe because I'm a survivor and I'm so happy about what is happening, we should just take this in home to everywhere, and then prepare the minds of the people so that they'll be willing, to participate in this when it finally arrives in our community. Thank you so much, my mentor, my coach, Dr. Marino.
Thank you so much. I can hear your passion. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yes. Anyone else? Anyone else?
Hello, I remember like when you were talking about things to learn, there was a slide before the psychological first aid. You were talking something about trauma, community trauma or something treatment. I didn't quite get it because I'm sitting in an office, so somebody was distracting me. Is it possible to go over that, if it's possible, the stuff before the psychological first aid?
Hold on. It was before psychological first aid. Oh, that was community trauma care.
Yes, I remember. I didn't quite get the full understanding of that. Somebody was distracting me.
You're cutting off. Are you talking about community trauma care? Is it this one? Yeah. Can you type in your question, because you're cutting in and out.
Okay. I'm trying to
community trauma aid. I think that's what you're talking about.
Community trauma care is the one after psychological first aid. Is that what you're talking about? Give me a yes or a no.
The age is what she's talking about.
Previous.
The one previous, okay. Previous to psychological trauma was adverse childhood experiences. Hello? Hello? She needs to type it. Why don't you just type in what you're saying, because your network is not too good. Oh, she's speaking. Oh, I'm sorry. Can somebody tell her to type in what she's talking about? Anyone else? Anyone else? Any questions? Any comments? Before we leave, you guys have been very participatory. I can see all your chats. Anyone before we leave? Are we good? I don't want to leave you with anything unanswered.
I'm trying to put in my question.
Okay. Who is that trying to put in their question? Oh, it's still Bolanle. Okay, good.
Bolanle, I'm just putting the question.
I've just done that. A rerun on the slide preceding the PFA slide. That is the slide with the adverse childhood experiences. That is the slide. It's called adverse childhood experiences. And it's talking about. Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so the adverse childhood experiences are the things that happen to you in childhood that we pretty much predetermine your adult life and the maladaptiveness you're going to experience in your adult life. Those are adverse childhood experiences. Okay, so what
individuals expected to do to avoid all these maladjustments?
Oh, well, okay. Well, this is one of the things that we're talking about. We're actually in the course in September, we're going to have a deep dive into it. But here are some things you can do now. Adverse childhood experiences happen. These are the big T's and the small T's. So basically, the big T's is maybe a death in the family, a parent or primary caregiver goes to jail. It could be beatings. It could be rape. It could be any kind of assault. It could be domestic violence. It could be addiction in the home. These are big, major adverse childhood experiences. And so what you need to do in order to make sure that you have children who are well adjusted is to create stability in the home, create a home that people are taking care of their own mental wellness. Because even adverse childhood experiences happen when a parent has a mental illness that they do not take care of, because the children will become beneficiaries or have the consequences of their parents' ailment. So it is one of the ways to prevent that is to make sure that we're doing the things that we're talking about on this platform, making sure that you take care of yourself, making sure that you create a home that is peaceful, making sure that at all costs you build protective factors around your children. You make sure that you build protective factors around them. And if you are injured in any way, and if you are sick in any way, and if you have a mental disorder of any kind, make sure you treat it so that your children do not become harmed by it.
Thank you.
Okay, you are welcome. Anyone else? Okay, well, you have been, make sure you sign up for the course. The course is 4 hours. It's 4 hours, and we will give you a certificate once you're done. And look, we're because it's an introductory course, we have given it at a very ridiculous price. And so make sure that you sign up for that. And I will see you guys next time. Big, do you have something to say about the course? When did they sign up?
Yeah.
The link is in the chat box. Okay, very good, very good. Winifred raised her hand. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
No, I wanted to just comment that you've talked about how to support people who have gone through trauma. I think I would just want to comment and reinforce the fact that people do recover from trauma, that because of the neuroplasticity of the brain, you can heal. So in as much as we've talked about all of these and all the symptoms, it's also very important that the power of storytelling is to shine hope, so that people can see that and say that you can recover if you start to take care of yourself. You can recover and you can live a very productive life. Trauma can be something of the past. It can be a story that happened yesterday, not a continual story. So I just wanted to leave that with everybody, that people recover. The brain is neuroplastic. The brain can recover, reconfigure itself, and you can move forward to have a real productive life. I'm done speaking.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Thank you, everyone. Anyone else? All right, then we'll see you on the other side. Thank you so much. And don't forget, you need to give yourself and your community the gift of the course. If you sign up today, Bingpe is saying that she's going to offer you 10% off. All right, so do it. All right, see you guys later.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Bingpe says send her an email if you want to access the 10% off. All right, she just makes these things up. All right, so see you guys later. Bye. Bye, guys.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
ladies and guys.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
I'm waiting for you all to leave so I can leave. Okay. Who is, Azumta was on. Marufa, don't forget tomorrow on Saturday we have our consortium meeting.